China has the largest EV market, but not for long, as Africa is gearing up to become the next electric superpower. Welcome to Electric Exclusive. Today we'll be looking at Africa and analyzing how it will be the next electric superpower. Electric automobiles, or EVs, were unimaginable decades ago as a viable alternative to gasoline-powered vehicles. Electric vehicles and conventional automobiles are now sharing the same roads. Since 2015, according to the Ministry of Public Security in China, the country has about 5 million electric vehicles, accounting for more than half worldwide. The United States and Africa are lagging in their adoption of electric vehicles. However, while the world's largest economy has begun to take steps that will help accelerate adoption, Africa has made little headway. Africa has the world's lowest electricity rate at just over 40%. Only 92 battery electric vehicles, or BEVs, were sold in South Africa in 2020, down from 154 in 2019, representing 0.02% of domestic vehicle sales. Hybrid vehicle sales dropped from 253 in 2019 to 232 in 2020. Electric vehicles account for around 350 of Kenya's 2.2 million cars. Nonetheless, several countries are developing extensive policy frameworks to help accelerate the transition to electric mobility. Africa will be well on its way to becoming an electric superpower due to this. In Africa, South Africa leads the EV market, with Mauritius, Seychelles, Rwanda, and a few North African countries. Kenya wants 5% of car imports to be EVs by 2025 and is cutting EV import duties in half. Ghana, Rwanda, Seychelles, and Mauritius have also rolled back import fees. Egypt plans to manufacture 20,000 EVs domestically per year starting in 2023. Namibia wants 10,000 EVs on the roads by 2030. South Africa is shooting for 2.9 million by 2050. In Uganda, state-owned vehicle manufacturer Kira Motors Corporation has launched locally manufactured electric buses. Rwanda electric motorcycle company Ampersand has introduced a new fleet of electric motorcycle taxis. In light of the EU's planned 2035 phasing out of internal combustion engine vehicles, Mikel Mabasa, Chief Executive Officer of the National Association of Automotive Manufacturers of South Africa, or NAMSA, says the country has accelerated e-mobility by stimulating demand for EVs in the domestic market, as well as focusing on the manufacture of EVs and EV components in the future. Hybrids, which fall under the EV definition, are already manufactured in the country by Mercedes-Benz, the C-Class, while the Toyota Hybrid will be launched in October 2021, he says. In May, South Africa drafted a green paper on new energy vehicles, to which NAMSA actively contributed. Mabasa says NAMSA and the government have appointed consultants to undertake a cost-benefit modeling research study to come up with an incentive framework under the Automotive Production Development Program Phase 2, as part of the South African Automotive Master Plan, or SAAM, 2021 to 35, implemented from 1 July 2021, with the objectives to produce 1.4 million vehicles per annum by 2035 and increase local content in vehicles from 40% to 60% on average. He says that EVs will play an increasingly important role under the SAAM from 2035 onwards. Also, Zimbabwe is working on an electric mobility policy framework and roadmap, expected to be functional by year-end. In North Africa, Morocco plans to achieve 23% energy savings in the transport sector by 2030, while Egypt is working on a national e-mobility strategy. Egypt is trialing 12 electric cars and plans to produce its first 100 in August 2022, while the country will build 3,000 charging stations in a joint manufacturing deal between Al Nasser Automotive Manufacturing Company and the Chinese Dongfeng Motor Corporation. Dozens of startups are working to capitalize on those ambitions, including many focused on public transit buses or motorcycles. According to the UN Environment Program, at least 50 startups are working on 2- or 3-wheeled EVs in Kenya alone. Jane Akumu, a program officer with the United Nations Environment Program, or UNEP, says that while Africa trails other parts of the world in e-mobility, the continent is awakening to the opportunities in the EV market, especially in electric 2- and 3-wheelers, where there is potential for green jobs, local manufacturing and assembly, cleaner renewable energy, and business opportunities in charging and battery swapping. We see governments reviewing their taxation structure, adopting EV policies and standards to favor EV uptake, and the private sector is also keen to have a share in this market. We have close to 50 startup companies in Kenya in the electric 2- and 3-wheeler space, and by May 2021, there were about 18 e-mobility companies, with more being established faster than ever before, she says. Two- and three-wheelers are where there's a massive opportunity and where the activity is concentrated, says Rose Muzito, Research Director at Energy for Growth Hub, a think tank focused on Africa's energy transition. As it seems, Africa's EV revolution will roll in on two wheels, not four. Small vehicles are poised for high growth for some reasons. Most cars on the continent are imported, pre-owned, expensive, not up to the latest fuel efficiency standards, and need routine maintenance. As a result, motorcycles, less expensive, more durable, and better maneuvered through traffic and over low-quality roads, are already the largest and fastest-growing segment of the African vehicle market, Musito says. According to the UN Environment Program, two-wheelers are quite common in Africa. Although they are more fuel-efficient than cars, they are so numerous and used so often that the total carbon footprint of motorcycles on the continent matches or exceeds that of cars. This makes them a perfect target for an electric revolution. Compared to cars, electric motorcycles are relatively straightforward and low cost to manufacture locally, with batteries still imported from China or upcycled out of used EVs from the US, Europe, or Asia, UNEP's Alex Corner says. That means they can avoid sky-high car import tariffs and ultimately be only a couple $100s more expensive than a conventional motorcycle, Corner says, a much smaller price gap than that between gas and electric-powered cars. The difference in taxation alone could already cover a big part of the gap in cost between conventional and electric two- and three-wheeled vehicles, he says. While Africa's EV development has high prospects and is on course to becoming an electric superpower, we cannot overlook the challenges it's currently facing and the ones it's bound to face. While grids in Europe have been able to cope with electric mobility, electricity systems in many African countries are already under strain. EV adoption in Africa face an infrastructural challenge, like weak electricity grids. Frequent blackouts in some countries could limit consumer demand for electric cars, as it cuts off access to transport. For example, in Nigeria, the average access to electricity is about 12 hours, and there are no known public EV charging stations in the country. Although the cost of EVs has dropped drastically over the years, the advancement in battery technology and the huge investment in EV startups have made buying an EV affordable. However, despite falling battery costs and the promise of savings over the lifetime of an EV from lower fuel and maintenance costs, the upfront price remains out of the range of average Africa. Despite the many problems plaguing the adoption of EVs in Africa, a handful of startups and companies in several countries are building electronic vehicles to push adoption within the continent. These companies are finally bringing the electric car revolution to the streets of Africa with the production of electric vehicle fleets of light carriers and motorcycles, vehicles well suited for the continent's challenging roads. With more governmental policies and investments in EV startups in Africa, the challenges will be phased out. While progress is being made, electric cars currently make up 1% of the global fleet, and significant barriers to the wholesale adoption of EVs remain. The report predicts that with even bolder climate programs and emission reduction targets, there could be up to 230 million electric vehicles on our streets, 12% of all road transport, by 2030. Similarly, SDG scenarios predict around 40% of light vehicles in Africa will be electric by 2050. With market forces gaining momentum, consumer consciousness on the rise, and the emergence of local EV companies, this forecast is not impossible. Africa can become the next electric superpower, dominating the EV market share within the next decade.